Hello. Nice to see you again, Stephen, for episode 2 of RawChocTV. And I think the first thing to say is just welcome Jacqui as well, and anyone else who might be lurking in the background. And we just had a really good time first time around, I think, and we had some really nice feedback, which was some nice comments and nice interaction, and encouraged us to keep going with it. So we thought we'd give it a try again and see where it goes. Trying a different platform this time, hopefully a bit more stable and easy for people to view. And yeah, we'll just see where the adventure goes from here, as is life.
Indeed. I mean, people can watch the show without logging in, so that's the first benefit, and the second benefit is the quality of the show as well. Now, again, we have a running order for the show, so I'm going to go with that. And the big question today is about cacao itself and the different types of cacao. Now, we don't know, so we're in your hands on this one.
Well, people just think of chocolate, and in fact a lot of people don't even know that chocolate is from a plant that's called the cacao theobroma tree, or the theobroma cacao tree. They just don't realize, well, they don't realize it's a seed on a pod on a tree. It's a bar in a shiny wrapper and gets you really sickly sweet. But yeah, so as with many natural things, whether it's any type of plant, really, there's lots of different varieties. And with cacao, there's largely 3 sort of distinct varieties. And then within each of those, there's various sort of subtypes and variations and what have you. And when you start exploring chocolate, exploring cacao and delving into some of the history, you realize just sort of how much has gone on over the years. Yeah, I mean, it's believed that the sort of the use or the interaction of cacao and humans goes back to the time of the Olmecs, who were in sort of Mesoamerica, sort of Mexico, sort of Central America area, going back to a couple of thousand years BC. And they're believed to be the first people to start sort of using, eating, consuming, and working with cacao. And the original type of bean is something that's known as the Criollo bean. And that is what is believed to be the original version of cacao. And it's from sort of the Mexico, Central America region. And it was pretty much the only type of cacao that was around for, well, probably hundreds of thousands of years, but certainly in the first sort of couple of thousands of years when man was sort of eating and consuming and using cacao, it was the only sort of type around. There were obviously various variations in different regions, as you get with everything, but that was the overall sort of strain phenotype. And then and it's still grown today. It's still often what's known as sort of the oldest, the purest type of cacao, and it's largely restricted to still Central America and many parts of that. It is also grown in other parts of the world, so notably in Indonesia, particularly the islands of Java and Lombok, which 2 small islands, part of the much bigger group of islands that's known as Indonesia. And it's renowned for having really sort of complex flavors, very sort of lots of interesting fruit and spicy type flavors through it, which are influenced by the soil, the environment, the altitude it grows at, and all those sorts of things. As with when you're growing carrots in Wiltshire, they vary from one field to another. It's the same with cacao, as with everything. But it is renowned for having those sort of complex flavors. One of the challenges, possibly problems with it, is that it's not a great yielder. You get good yield with it, but you don't get as good a yield as you do with some of the newer types. And as a result, as chocolate became a commercial crop, its use dropped as other strains were developed, and these days it only accounts for about 5% of the crop that's grown around the world. And like I say, still in Central America largely.
Right. Then how does it grow? Is it tall or what?
It's a tree. It's not the biggest. It's not a huge tree. It's sort of anything up to about sort of 30 foot tall. So it's a good sized tree, but it's not one of these giant Amazonian trees. But and because of its size, it kind of grows sort of within the forest, in amongst other trees, and it can tolerate being in the shade of larger trees. So it's quite sizable, but not a big tree that you would expect to see in the rainforest. And it flowers sort of all year round. And one day I'm looking forward to going to somewhere where it is growing and flowering and I can actually see the pods on the tree. And the pods get to about this sort of size, and they grow sort of pretty much all over the tree. They sort of not just restricted to the ends of branches. They sort of grow up, form on the branches, on the trunk, and all over. And then inside each pod there'll be a bean, which is about the size of that bit of your thumb. So it's it's sort of like almost like a large broad bean, I suppose, and it's sort of covered in a sort of a milky pulp. And so it flowers, like I say, it flowers all year round. So you get it's sort of almost producing crops sort of through the year rather than just having one big flowering season. But then it grows in the tropics, and they don't have the seasons we do.
Indeed. So they're the ideal conditions, as you say, in Java as well. So that bean accounts for 5% of the world's consumption. Which other beans are?
Okay, well, there's the sort of other two main types are what are known as Forastero, or Forastero, depending on how you pronounce it, and Trinitario. And the Forastero is, I think it's Spanish for stranger or foreigner. Whereas you might think it comes from forest, it's not. And that was again originally sort of from the Amazon basin. It's one of the early types, but it was domesticated later than the Criollo. It was sort of worked with and farmed by man later on. And it doesn't have the same depth of flavors that the Criollo beans have, and chocolate made from the Criollo has. Is it bitter or? Yeah, I mean, all cacao is bitter, but in its natural state, when you've just got the beans, they're not as bitter as you would expect from, say a strong dark chocolate, because the bitterness is drawn out by the roasting process further down the line. But I think the thing with it is it's a much stronger, more vigorous plant compared to the Criollo. So you get a bigger yield. And it's more tolerant to sort of pests and diseases and sort of the growing conditions, and as a result, it is the workhorse cacao. So It's when cacao was spread around the world, which was done in large parts by the Portuguese Empire, funnily enough. Hence, you get Criollo in Indonesia, because that was originally Portuguese territories. But now the Forastero is about 80% of the world's production, largely in Africa, sort of West Africa, and also through Asia. So it's like the workhorse cacao, whereas the Criollo is sort of the finer quality one. So I suppose if you were comparing to, say, chocolate and to coffee, you would compare it to the Robusta and the Arabica beans. The Robusta is the workhorse coffee that goes into instant coffee left, right, and centre. And the Arabica beans are the ones with the more refined flavours that are more likely to be a sort of a single origin. So that's the second one. And then there's a third one, which was developed later on by crossbreeding those two, the Trinitario. And that relatively new, around in the 1700s. And the Trinitario comes from sort of Trinidad, which is in the Caribbean, where it was actually developed, and it was a hybrid. And so you get better flavors than you do with the Forastero, and you get better yields that you get with the Criollo, but you don't get as good flavor as the Criollo, and you don't get as good yield. So it's sort of a middle way bean, and it makes up quite a sizable proportion. It's sort of probably the other 15% is largely Trinitario, and so but it's so it's sort of a halfway house between the sort of the workhorse and the real premium sort of top quality flavors that we get from the Criollo.
Yeah. And there's the bean from Ecuador as well, isn't there?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is where it sort of you start almost delving into the sort of subtypes, really, because the cacao that we use is what's known as Ecuadorian Arriba Nacional, and that is cacao from quite a restricted region of Ecuador, and it's still got a lot of it sort of, it hasn't been hybridized too much, so it's still got a lot of its original qualities, and it's kind of renowned for what they call the Arriba flavor, and it's very floral flavors to it. It's quite subtle, some of the flavors. It doesn't have the real sort of punch that some of the more workhorse cacaos have, but it's got some really interesting flavor notes, and it is renowned as one of the sort of the finest cacaos, and it is essentially a subtype of Criollo. But it's because of the conditions that it's been growing in, and it hasn't been crossbred. It's recognized as its own sort of phenotype, its own subtype, really.
So is it essentially a premium?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, as soon as you start looking at Criollo, any of the Criollo beans, wherever they come from, you are automatically looking at the higher end of the quality, and as a result, the price. And certainly within that, the Arriba Nacional from Ecuador is prized for its quality and its flavors. As a result, it's not grown anywhere near as much because all the big chocolate manufacturers want the high yield, disease resistant workhorse. So obviously, smaller artisan chocolate producers, whether they're raw chocolate or normal chocolate, they will still they'll search out different types of beans from around the world, and so you do get people working specifically with Ecuadorian cacao and all sorts. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So we have 4 different beans, and you've chosen.
Yeah.
And that's the one you will always use. You wouldn't.
I wouldn't say always. It's the one we work with now. Or not just but we really do like the Ecuadorian cacao in general, and specifically the Ecuadorian Arriba. We have worked with Indonesian cacao. There's a particular supplier from which is based in Java and Lombok. They work with farmers there. It's a company, Big Tree Farms, and they have a very interesting cacao. It's a Criollo beans, and because of the remoteness of those islands, when the industrialization of the chocolate market happened, those islands kind of got left out a bit. So what happened is sort of all the Forastero came around the world, but didn't really touch those 2 islands. So they've still got some really interesting, really flavoursome, original type Criollo. And it is an amazing cacao. But one thing that we find is it can actually be too much for people who aren't really used to chocolate or to raw chocolate. So at the moment, we're delighted with our Ecuadorian Arriba. We do occasionally sort of use some of the other stuff ourselves, and I would never say never, as I guess is the thing. I'm always on the lookout for interesting cacao, put it that way.
So last time we talked about how beans are actually processed, but how are they actually transported? Because you've got them in the forest, and how do they get to Wiltshire?
At the moment, very, very slowly and prolonged, because there's been some real problems with in Ecuador. I had our supply is a little bit haphazard at the moment. We're managing, but the Ecuador, they've had some bad weather over the past year with the El Nino. That has affected their weather, their crops. It's been a lot wetter. They're getting problems with mosquitoes. Then there was the earthquake earlier on in the year in Ecuador as well. And all of these things are impacting on the current situation, but we're still getting stuff, which is good to hear. But the process, I mean, certainly for our cacao, is that it's not grown on big plantations or anything like that. It's not sort of farmed as such. It's lots of different sort of families and small groups and cooperatives who essentially just live in the forest and have the forest around them, and that's their environment. And it is just sort of the one of the many crops, sort of almost a forest garden, I suppose you would say. So, and it's lots of different sort of families and small cooperatives that sort of come together to a central processing place, where the beans are sort of dried and then fermented and what have you. And then they're sort of split into butter and powder, or nibs, and processing that way. And then we get they come over through a distributor in the UK that we've got a very good working relationship with, who sort of brings them into the UK and into Europe. They also obviously go to the States and Canada and lots of other places. So yeah, one day I might get my own direct route, but importing sounds like not an awful lot of problems.
True. Right, at this point, Jacqui, glad you're still with us. I'm going to invite you to join us on screen. Waiting for Jacqui. Right, excellent.
Yeah.
Hello. Right, you'll see why I delayed, because we've got a situation where in the live broadcast, I'm now showing at the top,
yes, and
the two of you are in your normal positions in the boxes beautifully, but I've got this, I don't know. In the recording, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll shrink. Okay, welcome, Jacqui. It's good to see you.
Yeah, hello, Jacqui.
It's very hot here, so I'm glowing.
Bless.
I know. I need some of your cool weather.
Oh, don't. Well, actually, let's have a swap.
Yeah, indeed, that would be.
But actually, I think it's going to thunderstorm soon. It's really overcast, but it's hot. It's clammy.
Oh, okay.
So perfect hot chocolate weather.
Indeed.
Well, funny enough, I sort of sometimes I have hot chocolate instead of a coffee, and it's sort of the weather doesn't bother me too much with that. But yeah, I think just because sometimes it's a little bit more involved making it, I don't eat it quite as often as, or drink it quite as often as I should, I think. And every time I have one, I go, oh yeah, I love this.
Easy. 1 spoonful of chocolate, hot water, almond milk. It's made.
Oh, well, I do it slightly differently.
I'm sure. I do the quick version.
Well, it's nice to have you with us, Jacqui.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's always good to have someone come along and join us and share the madness with us. And you see,
I even made a cake, which I haven't got with me because I've eaten so much today I can't eat anymore.
Describe the cake.
Right. Okay. Well, this is a really, really simple recipe. And it started off years ago as my auntie in Australia's banana bread. And my mum's altered it and I've altered it. And so today it kind of forms the basis of most cakes that I make. So it's dead easy. It's 71 grams of quinoa, which you can either soak or boil. 250 grams of rice flour. Except I ran out of rice flour last night and I made it up with gram flour, so it's a little bit drier.
Okay.
But you could do it with buckwheat flour. So you can experiment. So it's 280 grams of that. 2 eggs. If you're vegan, soak tablespoon of either linseed or chia with water and use that as your substitute. So when I tell you a recipe, bear in mind I constantly change things. So what I did with this one last night is I didn't have any honey. So I chopped up something like 6 or 7 dates. I soaked the dates and then I used the bananas. So I had like lots of black bananas, and again, I probably used about 5 black bananas. So I squidged that up with the date water, put a little tiny bit of syrup in. So it's 71 grams of quinoa, 280 grams of rice flour, a packet of baking powder. Mix them all together. 125 grams. I used coconut oil. You could use butter, margarine, you could even use lard. Coconut oil. I'm joking about the lard. Don't put lard. So I use coconut oil. So you've got all your dry ingredients. You add your coconut oil so it becomes like fine bread crumbs. Then you add slowly your beaten egg, and then you add your gooey mashed bananas and dates and whatever else. Now, my mum does it all by hand. So whatever recipe she does, she sits. I get the hand blender out and I go. And then it's literally, again, you see, I've got a gas oven which just has 5 little markers on it.
Right.
I have no idea. So it's a fairly lowish temperature, about 180. I know, don't. It's about 180. And you know when it's cooked because the knife comes out clean. About 4 minutes.
Cool.
And so what I did last night is I put rather a lot of chocolate. I slipped.
Well, if it's got to be said, there's nothing wrong with slipping when it comes to chocolate.
It's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. So there is nothing difficult about this. Anyone who, like last night I sat there and I thought I really could do with a piece of cake. So
I think we all get those moments.
So an hour later I had cake. It's a bit like making raw chocolates. You know, you start, 20 minutes later they come out the freezer and you've got chocolate. But this recipe is such a good base recipe. You know, you could add cinnamon to it, whatever.
Right. In that case, Jacqui, I need you to email me that and we'll put it on the website.
Okay.
Brilliant.
I'll find a pen that works.
And some pictures of just the crumbs on a plate.
I did actually take a picture last night looking down on it, but that's about it. I'll put a slice on a pretty plate and see if I can send you something that looks half decent. Otherwise, I'll send you a "don't tell anyone" a stock picture.
I'll edit that bit out. But no, and that's brilliant. I mean, I'm all for sort of quick and easy recipes, and I'm not a big cake or cooked cake maker. It's just baking's not my thing. But Paula, my wife, she does get into baking and she bakes banana bread and things like that. So something a bit different. That'd be a good one for her to try, definitely.
Well, kind of what's interesting is if you play around with different flours and different ingredients, you obviously get a texture. And I think what's nice about having a base banana bread recipe like that is that we've all got kind of like different taste buds. So because last night I made 4 little muffins for my neighbour. I didn't put any ginger in because Kath doesn't like it. Whereas I accidentally bought 1 kilogram of ginger.
Wow.
As you do.
As you do. Well, I drink ginger and lemon tea with turmeric. So it's actually, 1 kilogram's actually not that much. Well, it is. It's too much. But, you know, you could easily grate. So if you've got, I know, don't cook with me. If you've got a base recipe, you know, you can experiment until you get something that kind of really suits your taste bud. Because like buckwheat is really lovely. You want to make it with all buckwheat. Whereas rice flour, it's very, very moist. Add in brown flour and it starts to dry it up a bit. So, you know, kind of varies.
Excellent. But that's one of the great things about sort of cooking of any sort is actually just experimenting and sort of using recipes as a guide, isn't it?
Yes.
Rather than actually sort of getting set on them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to try next. I've made some. I bought a dehydrator, and well, the next couple of days I have an organic veggie box. I bought so much beetroot. You just never know, do you? You order it, and then I'm actually going to make some crisps. But after I've made crisps, I'm going to make some. They'll probably be almond bases, but chocolate almond cookies in the dehydrator. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Lord knows, I'll have a go.
Oh, absolutely. Dehydrator is something that Paula and I we keep sort of saying we must get one, and we will get one of those days. It's sort of,
Do you know, it's incredible. I got this. It was 99 quid on Amazon, down to 79. It's got a small footprint. The trays are fairly shallow, but I'm sure you can buy deeper trays if you want to make a bigger cake or something. And I bought a recipe book, as the kind of the foundation. I've been making different kinds of crackers in it.
Oh, raw crackers.
Do you know what? And the same cracker recipe, you could just whack in the oven. If you want your crackers like that, you just whack them in the oven. However, well, when they're ready, because my
Okay.
you got to. But coming out of the dehydrator, they're fabulous. And I've already made cookies, but not chocolate cookies. And they were, I think I'd run out of chocolate, and I'd use, what's that other thing? Carob. I didn't have chocolate, I used carob instead. They were great.
Okay, excellent.
So, you know, as a way, and like now that I bought all these additional, accidentally bought additional vegetables, I can just go and make a whole pile of crisps. Not sure I'd be having them with chocolate dip though.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe find out. Well, I suppose if you're making a chili dip, you can put a bit of cacao in there.
Oh yeah, except I don't eat anything in the nightshade family, so I don't eat any peppers. I'd need to find a way to make something piquant. Do you know what?
Ginger. Lots of ginger.
Do you know what? I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn how to make a chili that doesn't have chilies in it, but is spicy, but has chocolate in, and then I'll let you know how I get on. So
the non-chili chili stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what we'll call it. We'll call it something else. Chocolate stew.
Jacqui's chocolate stew.
You'll have to come and report back on next month's show.
I'm going to make you chocolate stew. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to invent chocolate stew.
All right.
It's on my pad.
Oh,
I'm going to have a go. It'll be so funny. I tell you what, the next thing will be, well, chocolate face mask.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts you can do with it. Absolutely.
Chocolate bath.
Oh, she's off now.
Yeah.
No stopping her.
Okay, now, this week's recipe.
Yes. Okay. Well, seeing as we do actually have a bit of a summer, I thought let's have a smoothie recipe because I love smoothies.
Right.
And you can't beat a homemade smoothie. So yeah, this is my Summer Super Power Smoothie.
Okay. Just give me a second to set this up. It's not as easy as it was on the platform. So we'll go and we'll see the smoothie. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. It will suddenly appear.
Well, at least I can edit these bits out.
Well, you can. Most certainly you can.
Some of them at least.
Takes a bit of practice.
Quickly, Dan, how do you film your recipes? Do you just set a camera up in your kitchen, or do you do it and then film it and then film it?
What I've done so far, I've got sort of a digital SLR type thing that can do video. So I put that up on a tripod. Okay. And depending on, I've only sort of filmed 2 recipes so far. So depending on how I sort of the layout, I sort of have it either pointing sort of more down or straight at them, and have just get everything laid out and think about it and sort of do pretend movements. Just to sort of get a feel for it, and then just start recording, press record and keep it recording, and then after it's been recording for a while, then do something, and just take time doing each step when, well, if it's possible in a recipe. And then
cut bits out then to kind of...
And then edit it together, and then sort of overlay graphics and words and text and things like that. And so that's the recipe ones. And I'm sure at some point it'd be nice to have somebody else doing the filming while me or someone else is doing the recipes. You can see someone, just a bit of variation. But
I tell you what you could do. I got this little. I don't know if you can see this. I got this little. So I use that when I'm doing my course videos, and then I have on another tripod sometimes my mobile phone. So you. Okay. Because I did an exercise once where I had the phone pointing at my feet and then the other camera pointing at my face, because it was a walking exercise.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, because it's about writing a book.
Okay. So it's about writing a book, so you were filming your feet. One
of the exercises called Walk the Line. So So you step from chapter to chapter to chapter. So I was trying to get my feet and my face, and I thought, well, how am I going to do this? So I set various things up. I know.
Well, my mobile phone does do good HD video as well, so yeah, I might have to start playing around with a couple of different ones, but anyway, yeah, who knows? It's all part of the experiment.
It is. I was just thinking, how could I do a filming of my chocolate stew for you?
I'm not sure if I want to film of your chocolate stew.
I'm gonna make it. Sorry, behave.
And we're back. So that
Indeed.
is our Summer Super Power Smoothie, which, as you see, is ever so easy to do. Only takes a couple of minutes, and yeah, you can vary it with whatever you want to add, what fruits you have to hand, and what preferences you've got. You can add in other things to it, so bee pollen or buckwheat, sprouted buckwheat, anything really, and just sort of go wild with your imagination. You can even add things like spinach leaves in there. That's not always a nice thing to add to a smoothie, so give it a bit more of a green edge to it and get the nutrients from the spinach. So yeah.
Indeed. Right, here's the URL for the recipe, and if anybody wants to follow along there, you'll be able to see the ingredients listed. In fact, everything's on that page, isn't it, Dan? Everything needed.
Yeah, absolutely. The recipe, the step by step, and the video will be on that page as well. And yeah, so it's so easy. And like I say, it's as we were saying earlier, Jacqui, it's a basis for getting ideas really. But I love smoothies. They're such a good thing, and somehow they taste better in the summer, I think, because you've got fresh fruit. Whereas in the winter, but then even in the winter, you can get frozen berries and take them out of the freezer, and you've sort of got a nice instant sort of cold smoothie that way. So yeah, I love them. I do.
I find I go through phases with smoothies. Like at the moment, I'm really wanting to eat kind of like my nuts and seeds and fruit with my almond milk. Whereas I went through months and months and months in the spring, strangely enough, smoothies every day. So it'd be like, like you've put the avocado and the banana and the chocolate. It was kind of every single day I would sit there, because I use a NutriBullet. I would sit there with this thick, just delicious. And then later in the day, I'd have, like you said about the spinach, with spinach and ginger and beetroot. And that would be my kind of afternoon thing. But this is first thing in the morning. Yeah. And so much you can't even eat it all. It's lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we either have a juice or a smoothie for breakfast virtually every day, and it's such a good way of setting you up with sort of loads of energy for hours, it seems. And even there, it just shows that you don't have to have a huge amount of cacao into something. Just of like grinding some cacao nibs into it, it adds a bit of extra flavour. But if you wanted more cacao in, say, a smoothie, you could just put a teaspoon of or a tablespoon of cacao powder in, and that would really boost the sort of the chocolate flavour. So again, it's that versatility, isn't it? So,
and experimenting.
Exactly. And I think we talked about this a bit last time, Stephen. There's sort of one of the things that, as a business, we do is that we want to encourage people just to actually get stuck in and get playing around with chocolate and get making things and just experimenting. And it's sort of, you never know quite where it's going to go and what creations, you might end up with something to compete with Jacqui's chocolate stew.
Well, I mean, basically, if you've got the raw chocolate making kit, then you can experiment to your heart's content, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really good introduction, I think, yeah, it sort of seems to sort of often get people sort of gets people's imaginations going. But actually, while we're talking about kits,
yeah,
one of the things over the years that we've been doing this, I often sometimes I think to myself, why don't people just get stuck in when they get given a kit? Because surely it's such a good thing to be given. It's like you'd want to do it. And I now know why people don't. One, it might be because it's not their interest. But the other thing is, I got given a ginger beer making kit at Christmas.
Yes.
And it's still sat in my kitchen and I haven't made it yet. And I love ginger beer. I absolutely love ginger beer. I drink so much of it if I can. And so a kit to make my own homemade ginger beer. But I will get round to it. But when I get round to it, I will remember sort of my stepdaughter who gave it to me. And he was sort of, yeah, so I see it almost every day, and it's like, oh, I still haven't made that. Still haven't made that. And yeah, one day I will. And then Paula, she got given a mushroom kit, grow your own mushroom box, and she left it so long before she actually got around to do it. They started sprouting out the top of the box. I think they just gave up and said, right, we're going for it.
Right. I put my hand up too to join the club, because we've got a raw chocolate making kit in a drawer downstairs, and we really must use that soon. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think having a kit of something myself, I now can understand that it's not that people aren't interested in it, whatever it may be, whatever the kit may be. It's just that life gets in the way, and it's sort of like, if it's anything like me, it's moved around the kitchen and I put it somewhere, think, right, I must do it, and then something happens and it gets covered up with something else, and when I rediscover it. So
yeah.
Do you think that it could have something to do with the fact that we are so used to going to the supermarket and buying what we want, that we actually think it's difficult to make up your own stuff? So
I think,
got into that habit of, there's a bottle of ginger beer on the shelf in the supermarket. Why would I bother so you're kind of not in the habit of perhaps making everything yourself, because you're used to the convenience.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely an element of it. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably sort of 9 times out of 10, when someone then uses a kit of whatever sort, they suddenly realize, oh, it wasn't that difficult, and they get that real sense of satisfaction of having made something and sitting down and enjoying it and going, oh my God, that was amazing. I've never tasted anything quite like it. So note to self, ginger beer at the weekend.
Okay. Now,
I bet you don't.
You've been busy the past couple of days, but not with chocolate. And I've been following the story on Facebook.
Well, yes. I kind of felt a little bit unprepared for this episode. I think I've managed to pull it all out the bag. But well, we've had all sorts of troubles with our camper van dying, and my battery on my laptop's dying, and I don't know where my charger is. Ooh, this is gonna be interesting. So our camper van died, and I've been looking for another one. So that's been sidetracking me. And then yesterday evening, our neighbour turned up, having found a little bird in the street, and so went, "I found this," and sort of like handed it to us and went off on a dog walk. So it's sort of like, I've got this, you deal with it. And so it turned out to be a baby house martin. We sort of made a little sort of cubby hole in a box last night and tried to feed it. And I went running off around to see some friends. A friend who's got a business called Tropical Discovery Workshops, plug for you there, Chris, who does sort of reptiles and snakes and sort of experiences for schools and parties, that sort of thing. And so I thought, he'll have some mealworms. So I went around to his, got some mealworms and tried to feed it to the bird, and it was blindly going whenever you tried to get it near it. And we were in touch with Wiltshire Animal Rescue, or Wiltshire Animal Hospital, one or the other. Wiltshire Animal Hospital, I think it is, they're called, who gave me some good tips, and then spoke to them again this morning. And because it still hadn't eaten, they sort of put us in contact with someone fairly local, and we did a meeting in a car park to hand over a box with a bird in it. So I felt a bit like a spy, but with good intentions to me.
Oh, yes.
And we passed it on to this very nice old gentleman called Jeff, who I said to him, apparently house martins are quite difficult to rear, and he said, it'll be fine with me. So I know it will.
Take a pair of hands.
So hopefully this little, and it was so cute, this beautiful little house martin chick, so probably close to fledging, but not quite, will hopefully survive and get to live a beautiful life flying around Wiltshire. So fingers crossed.
Our fingers crossed too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Which brings us neatly around to this week's competition.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Well, it's kind of following on from the recipe, really, in that the recipe had sort of cacao nibs and vanilla and hemp seeds and all sorts of bits and pieces in. And so I thought, actually, let's do a big bundle of goodies. So we're putting together a nice big box of raw chocolate ingredients. There's going to be cacao butter and powder and nibs, and then vanilla powder and hemp seeds and lucuma powder and maca and all sorts of things like that. So we're going to do a great big box of stuff. It'll be worth more than 50 quid. So it'll be a nice, good box of stuff. And really simple to enter. You don't have to answer a question this time around. All you got to do is go to a web address and click on the register button, confirm your email address, and you will be entered. Then the draw is 2 Fridays time, and yeah, good luck.
Brilliant.
Simple as that.
That's simple and straightforward, and a bag of goodies to be won, which is brilliant.
Excellent. Right. So yes, so that's it. So I mean, yeah, I think we've covered most things, haven't we, this month?
I'm just going to check. Unbelievably, Jackie, we script these. Dan scripts these shows, and we actually follow a script most of the time.
I kind of guessed that by the questions and the fact that you brought everything back to the next thing, that there was something.
Yeah, meandering wasn't in it. We had a path, and we had to.
Then you invited me.
Of course.
And absolutely. My battery's now starting to flash a red cross at me. So if I just disappear, I'm not being rude, and it has been lovely to talk to you both.
Indeed,
and I'll see you next month.
Absolutely. And in fact, speaking of next month, the next month's show is the Wednesday the 10th, I believe.
Okay.
I think that's the date we've got in our diary. Yeah, the second Wednesday of the month. So Wednesday the 10th of August, 7 p.m. Probably on Fire Talk again, but we'll keep an eye out for updates. And yeah, we'll keep this.
A quick question before your computer dies. Are you happy for me to share your videos on my blog?
Yes.
So
yes.
Reference and
yes. There's links to our YouTube channel where they're all on there. They'll also be on Facebook as well. So if you can share the YouTube videos, share the Facebook videos, absolutely. Yeah. Mwah, I love you.
No problem at all. Right, I'm off. I'm going to go and get some cider with my neighbours.
Okay. Take care, Jackie.
Take that bit out. See you later.
Bye, Jackie. Nice to see you. Bye.
Ah. Right, it's back to the two of us. Right, time to close the show then, because
excellent.
Yep.
Well, yes. So yeah, another interesting, fun-packed episode. Certainly, I've had fun. It was nice to have Jackie with us. Always good to chat with you, Stephen. And yeah, visit the competition link, and good luck entering that. And hopefully, we'll see some of you next month, either live, which would be great, and if not, certainly in the catch-up. And yeah, we'll see where this raw chocolate adventure goes for all of us. So until next time, thank you and bye-bye.
And bye from me. Take care, everybody, and thank you for watching.